Big changes are coming for businesses that sell to the European market. Are you ready? On June 28th of this year, 2025, the European Accessibility Act, also known as the EAA, takes effect. And if your business sells products or services to any of the European consumers that are part of the European Union, even if it's online, you have to comply with the strict accessibility standards that they have. It is not like the US with our suggested recommendations for digital accessibility. Failing to comply with these, not even guidelines, but regulations, means fines, daily penalties, and if you don't take the opportunities to fix the digital accessibility issues on your website, you could be blocked from selling in the EU. But that's why you're here. So I can help you and teach you how to avoid all of this craziness. So stay tuned. Go and pause this and grab your favorite drink because for the next 5 minutes or so, I'm going to break down what the EAA is so you can set the panic aside and continue with making the biggest impact that you can globally. So there's a misconception that the EAA applies to big corporations only. That would be incorrect. It applies to small freelancers and small businesses like myself that provide services to anybody in the EU. My services qualify to have to comply for this regulation because I have customers in the European Union with my digital accessibility and website design work. If you have an e-commerce store and you sell products and you offer shipping or you offer those products to people globally, then it applies to you as well. So it also applies to software platforms in SaaS businesses or software as a solution, I believe, online courses, streaming services, and digital media. So if you are an online coach and you teach or offer coaching, or if you create tutorials and courses off of content similar to what I'm sharing here today, or gaming, or cooking, or any of that stuff, and you allow people from the European Union to purchase or enroll in your courses, it applies to you. Financial services like banking and crypto, self-service kiosks and ticket machines, all that good stuff. So again, the overreaching or the umbrella topic or theme of this whole thing is that if you service anybody in the European Union, then the EAA is relevant for you. So what happens if you decide to ignore the EAA? Well, it can cost you a pretty penny, that's what. There are fines from anywhere starting at 5,400 US dollars to $21,600 for a single violation. If you have 10 violations on your website or your app, let's go high end, 10 times 21,000. Do you have $250,000 laying around to just spend because you didn't want to take the time to invest in ensuring that your website met accessibility standards? I sure as hell don't. There are daily penalties of up to $1,080. And then there are country-specific fines in addition to this overarching or overall European Union penalty. And in France, for example, those fines can be up to $270,000. In Italy, it's 5% of your annual revenue. Again, I don't have that kind of cash laying around. Do you? Worst case scenario, you get banned from being able to sell your products or services in the EU. Besides the legal trouble of failing to be accessible, what are some of the other ramifications? Well, you could lose customers who can't access your site, which there are about 15% of the global population has some sort of disability that digital accessibility affects. That 15% accounts for about $3 trillion in spending power. And if your site doesn't meet EAA or WCAG guidelines and requirements, you're missing out on all of that purchase power. You risk poor search rankings on Google because while keyword stuffing, we're talking about alt text here, was a thing that was promoted a couple of years ago to improve your SEO, having an accessible site and using those best practices makes your site more SEO friendly without having to fall into those kind of traps or gimmicks like the keyword stuffing. And with the push for accessibility right now, it's a hot topic, at least in my niche, it is. You run the risk of having a damaged brand reputation. Word of mouth. That's where I get all of my referrals. How do you get yours? If it's word of mouth, then having a damaged brand reputation is no bueno. So the real cost of not maintaining a site that is accessible or conforming to EAA and WCAG standards is that it's not just about the money. You're losing business because people can't access your site. So what are some quick fixes to keep yourself in alignment and compliance, conformance, all that good stuff? It's just like regular accessibility work that we've been talking about here on this channel. It's making sure that you have alt text or alternate text on all of your images that need it. Not all images require alternate text. You need to make sure that your keyboard navigation works. You don't want keyboard traps or people getting hung up and stuck and not being able to cycle through and access your site with their keyboard. There are a lot of non-mouse users, probably more than you realize. And third, you're going to check your color contrast. You want to have those minimum color contrast requirements of 4.5 to 1. And just by making those three changes, it's huge. You can avoid a lot of the headaches that we just got done discussing. So it's also about a competitive advantage, like we were talking earlier about the brand reputation. So because this is the EAA, some of the stats, for example, we talked about the global disability stats. Well, 87 million of of the European population have disabilities. So that's a huge customer base. So if you have customers in the EU, those are numbers that are still relevant, in addition to the global numbers that I shared earlier. That being said, if you find all of this gobbledygook, just that gobbledygook, and you need some help with running through and making sure that your site is accessible, or maybe even just checking to make sure that your site is accessible or where some of your pitfalls might be, let me know. This is my passion and it's what I love to do. I love helping small business owners make their website work best for them and your customers and users and anybody else that just happens upon your site. You don't know where your next client or customer is going to come from. So let's make it as easy as possible for them to find you. So the European Accessibility Act, it's coming fast. Today, the date of recording, it is March 18th, which means we've got about 3 months before the EAA becomes set in stone and all of these crazy fines start accumulating for those that choose to ignore it. But that's 3 months to get ahead and be part of the minority. 90% of the web is inaccessible. Be part of the 10%. Let me know if you need help doing that. Comment below and let me know if you have anybody that you service in the EU, or if you have any questions about how the EAA differs from what we have here in the States with WCAG 2.2. And let's make a difference, not just to the people using your site, but to your bottom dollar too.